Hello, welcome everyone. This is day 5 of Open Security Summit training sessions, and we are joined by Petra today to do Wardley mapping with us. If you're new to the Open Security Summit, it is a collaborative community. We do talk about security. We're not from all security background. We like the diversity, and Petra is a great example for that. She comes from healthcare. She's a doctor, and she's now doing security. So we normally do the sessions on site, but this year COVID has enabled us, given us an opportunity to go virtual, and by that we were able to reach bigger audience, and we were able to do training sessions before the summit sessions, which will happen in week 3. This is week 1. So what do you expect from this session, or what do we expect from you? We know you care deeply about the subject, otherwise you wouldn't be spending your time on this. We do expect your participation because that's the best way to learn. And we respect you. We expect that you respect our speaker and the other attendees in the sessions. We expect you to challenge. We're all here to learn. Even the speakers, even though they know the stuff, they can't know everything. So we all learn from each other. So feel free to unmute yourselves whenever you have a question and just ask your questions. But if you're shy, you can, if you want to write them in the chat. I will be monitoring chat, but I do encourage you to unmute yourself. We are a small group here, so just don't be shy. One thing about the summit is the openness. Everything we do, we record this. We record this session, we record the outcomes, and they will be all on our website later. So if you don't want to be identified, you can change your name, and you can just use the chat because the chat does not get published. Yeah, and we have talked about respect. And yeah, thank you for being here. I will share our Slack link, Slack invite link in a minute in the chat window. And OSS 2020 is our hashtag. Use it generously on Twitter. Let us know and let the world know about your experience. What did you like? What you didn't like? We're all ears, because that's what gets us better for the next year. So, thank you, and over to you, Petra.
All right, so thank you everyone for being here. As I've been already introduced, I'm Petra Vukmirovic. Just want to say it's really great to be on this summit. It is a really great cooperative event. And this is basically my little crash course on Wardley mapping. It is aimed at beginners, but it can be actually fun for all levels. And as I said before, I want to make this a discussion forum rather than trying to teach you things. So if you have any questions, any comments, if you disagree with anything that I say, just, feel free to interrupt and let's discuss it. Now, I just want to introduce myself a little bit. Who am I? I'm Glasgow InfoSec team member. And my initial title was Productivity Engineer in Glasgow. And on the right-hand side, you can see there is a PowerPoint slide that I presented on my initial interview. Glasgow, for my interview, actually asked me to do a presentation about myself. So as you see, I'm emergency medicine doctor by background. I am a master's information security and digital forensics student. I'm also an athlete. I play volleyball and beach volleyball in England. I'm also a rookie medium blogger. I started blogging recently, so if you want to follow any of my blogs, they're mostly tech. Have a look at this link. I'm also a Python enthusiast. I recently started doing Python, and I realized how much it can be used to automate security tasks. So I'm exploring this wonderful world of Python right now. also I'm a DevSecOps enthusiast, and this all became when I read the Phoenix Project, which I also blogged about, which is a book that really, really well explains DevOps. So also on the right-hand side, you can see recently I was on a headline of a Croatian newspaper. It all started with an online article, but then it kind of went a little bit viral. But it's kind of funny. The headline says that Dr. from Rijeka in London, the fear of every hacker. So I'm also a COVID-19 frontline fighter. I have been working in the hospital in March and April. And as I mentioned earlier, there was, that's how it all started. Basically, Volleyball England made an article about me, and then the European Confederation also find the story quite interesting, and it kind of went viral from there a little bit. Okay, so initially I wanted to put this slide on at the end before we start mapping, but I think because probably some people here might even already know Wordly Maps and how to do it, so I thought to put out the challenge straight away so that people can get onto that. So you can use a couple of tools. One tool is I put like a PowerPoint template, which I'll be using just for the purposes of this presentation. The other tool is MapScript and online Wordly Maps. Now, what I'll do is, let me just, sorry, what I'll do is I'm going to post these two links in the chat as well right now. So, and I'm just gonna click on these two so you can have a quick look at how it works. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Cool. So as you see, this is MapScript. You can just drag stuff around the screen, put new elements here, and just construct your own map. And the other one is this one.
I know you can on the online Wordly Maps. I just meant the other one.
Yeah, you should be able to move them. Can you see this one?
Yeah, that one's much simpler.
Yeah, I think this one is simpler, so you can use that one too. But I've also put a template, if you can see in the chat, that it's like that's one is dead simple, and you can easily use that one for the whole thing that we're doing. So, okay, so I'm gonna give you some mapping challenges to do while I'm talking or after I finish talking. It's up to you. So one would be one thing that I like, that would be a vegetarian burrito. Another thing is something I dislike, and that's plastic pollution. And a third thing is something that is just simply necessary, and that is the 2020 lockdown. They're also like ranked in difficulty. The vegetarian burrito is probably the most easiest one, and the lockdown will be a bit harder. Okay, so while I'm talking, you can feel free to start doing them, or you can do them later. It's up to you. So just wanted to say a little bit about Simon Wardley. He's definitely someone with a refined, sarcastic sense of humor. I really laughed at this tweet of his because there was someone who wrote like a Wikipedia article about him, and it was very brief, but he made it obviously even briefer. And this kind of humor actually reminded me a little bit of Blackadder, which I watched as a teenager. Now, really, who is he? So he's originally a geneticist, so also someone who comes from a diverse background, an IT strategist, former CEO, business innovation researcher, and the obviously creator of Wordly Maps. And I will let, as Simon likes to keep it brief, I'll keep it brief about him. So I will let his maps and his Twitter speak for him.
And he's a big fan of the summit.
Yeah.
Regular.
Yeah, he is a regular attender, and he does turn up to quite a few sessions. Okay. So what I wanted to say is something that, he invented Wordly mapping, but a lot of people were surprised actually that this thing wasn't there before. but also he always emphasizes one thing about maps is that they might all be wrong, and they all evolve and they all get better with time. So we should all try and do them, and then just see how our maps develop with time. It's very interesting to see, because if at one point of time you can develop a map and then try and do it like in a few months' time, you'll see how different the map will look. Okay, so why are we doing them? Well, if you look up, if you Google Wardley Maps, you will find a lot of, what are they, but very little like why. But the key word is basically awareness. And we get into awareness of what? I would say the main thing is situational awareness, which kind of is a sum of, awareness of your destination, your purpose, awareness of your landscape, so your topography, what's around you, and also awareness of your path, so how to get to that destination. All these are very important elements in order to form a strategy. And now we get to this. Why a map? Why not a graph? Well, we don't want to go round and round when we're looking for something, right? We need to know our path, and we need to know our landscape so we can orient ourselves. So basically, to conclude, if you're lost in the vast jungle of the business world or DevOps, you need to be aware of your path, your geoposition, and your topography, and then you can form a really good strategy. Now, to explain a little bit more why a graph, why a map, why not a graph, I'm going to tell you a little story that I made up. It's a story about an unlucky pirate. So on the left-hand side, you have a treasure map. And on the right-hand side, you have a graphical representation of sodium cyanide, which is a poison present in the Death Creek waters on the treasure island that you see on the map. So basically, there was this one pirate who found a treasure map and located a treasure. But he was, mean and vicious, as all pirates are, and he tweaked the map and actually drawn the treasure right here, close to the Death Creek, and put the map obviously in like a visible location so that someone else finds it. Now, the second pirate, he found the wrong map, and he came to the Death Creek. Now, you see, location on a map here is really important then, because it makes a huge difference. Because the pirate who came to the Death Creek, it was really hot that day. So here we get to the climate, which I'll mention later. It was really hot that day, and that made him drink the water from the creek. Now, to explain it, basically to sum it up, for this second pirate, it was really important, the map was important to find the treasure, because it meant basically life or death. But on the right-hand side, you see you have the cyanide, sodium cyanide, and it's a graphical representation, and it really doesn't matter if the nitrogen is at 11 o'clock or if it's at 5 o'clock. It doesn't make a difference. It's still a poison, and it will still have the same effect. While on the map, position matters, and it will have a complete different effect. Basically, to sum it up, if you do a Wardley map wrong, you will die. No, I'm joking. Okay, so a little bit about Wardley Maps. Now, there's a theory behind it. There's a philosophy that Simon looked into before he was doing the maps. And this is Sun Tzu's philosophy. He was a Chinese military strategist in ancient China. And he always preferred, strategical moves rather than battling on the battlefield itself. So he had a philosophy of war, which was called Art of War. And now it's used extensively in business. As you see, business sometimes kind of is like a war and a battle. And it had the following components: purpose, landscape, climate, doctrine, and leadership. So to quote Simon, in that model, a wise leader has a moral imperative. So this would be our purpose, our destination. That leader grasps the terrain, which in this case was a map, the landscape, anticipates patterns of the forces acting on the environment. So this is the climate. In our unfortunate pirate's case, that was the hot climate that kind of made him drink the water that was poisonous. so the climate is really important too. And then that leader trains the organization in universally useful principles and makes shrewd decisions that lead to victory. So this is our leadership element. Now, every map, not just Wardley Maps, but just any map, has to have a few basic elements to be clear. A map must be visual. It must be context specific, and the positions of the components should be relative to an anchor, which I'll explain a bit later. Now, there should be also representation of movement on that map. Now, this is Simon's first map. As you see, it is visual, because we can see everything. It reflects a business that is at a given moment of time. So it is a business at a certain moment, and it has an anchor. In this case, it's the customer, and the customer has its needs. So these would be the elements here on the map. Now, it has also, so as I said, the position of the components in the map, but it also matters if, like, where they're positioned on the y-axis, which is this, the value chain. So the ones that are higher on the y-axis, they are more visible to the customer itself. The ones that are lower are less visible, and that's how we should aim to align our components too. Now we have the x-axis, which represents the stages of evolution. So we have a few components on the x-axis. One component is the genesis. So this is where things are very new and rare, and they're unique and very uncertain, and they change all the time. And here we focus on exploration. The second stage would be custom built. So it's still very uncommon, and we're still learning about it. It is very tailored and bespoke, and it changes also quite frequently. It can be also an artisan skill. We wouldn't expect to see two of these at the same time. This is where we focus on learning. And then we have the product, which is basically manufactured through a repeatable process. So here we're talking about upscaling, industrialization. And then finally we have a commodity, which is very industrialized. And we have a specific purpose, and we have repetition, and our focus is basically ruthless removal of deviation and operational efficiency. With time, we get so used to it that we don't even see it, and that's why usually commodities are lower, because they're less visible on the map. This is basically just a cheat sheet that you can see that is in regards to the stages of evolution. We have a couple of types of components that can be present here. So we can have activities, we can have practices, we can have data, and we can have knowledge. And all of these have these traits presented on the cheat sheet. So I wanted to show you my first map. As you see, it is very, very imperfect, and it's messy. Everything is everywhere. I made this for my interview with Glasgow, but it was my first map. I didn't bring just that map to the interview. I brought like another one that was a bit more neat, but I won't show it this time. But you know, as you see, it does actually have a few basic components. So it has an anchor. It was actually a map about developing a vaccine for COVID-19. So it has an anchor, which is a general population here. And then that general population has its needs, which would be health and functionality. So basically that need was actually mass production and a vaccine, mass production of a vaccine. So these components are not really distributed here properly, as you see. But it was my first map, as I said. But here at the genesis, we have, I did this correctly, and we have a unique set of researchers. So basically, they're all very unique by themselves with their unique knowledge and their unique scientific backgrounds, which kind of were the genesis of it all, the start of making a vaccine. And here we have like machine learning algorithms, which are less visible, obviously, to the general population, which help optimize supply chain and automate the whole thing. So I kind of was on the right track, but obviously not there yet. But it also does have some other main components. It's visual. It has a context, which is 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything has a position. There is an anchor, there is a movement, and there are components. I wanted to show Simon's map on, the evolution of virtual space as something to, as a space to provide events in the future. Again, as you see, we have the virtual space here, which we don't really see. And then we have, events that, we had before and we are aware of. But we have a new emerging practice, which again is at the genesis. So, it's at the custom built. So it's, it's bespoke, it's new, it's something that we're still learning about, which will, with time, move forward towards events, and with time, we will actually know much better about it, and it will be more of a product kind of thing. Right. So, how to make a map? Well, to make a map, you have to have some prerequisites. And you can, if you want to, you can now open the PowerPoint that I put in the chat, or you can use the other tools that I put out there. And then for this, you will need Python, Ruby, and C#. If nobody knows that, then sorry, we can't make a map. Yeah, obviously not. So yeah, all you need is PowerPoint skills and an imagination, or knowing how to use the online tools that I posted. And so I would definitely invite everyone to try and start mapping now as we go along, so that we can share the maps and we can talk about it later. As I said before, no map will be, all the maps actually are wrong, but that doesn't matter. It's good to discuss them, change them, tweak them, improve them, or some of them might be even perfect, who knows. I personally did not make any maps for the challenges because I wanted to keep my mind open to see what other people will do. Okay, so we have a canvas here, an empty canvas that we first need to, to start mapping. As I said earlier, we put the users here, which is an anchor. So once we determine the anchor for our challenges, for all three of them, so for example, for the Lockdown 2020 challenge, the anchor could be a nation, because then a nation needs the lockdown in the end. Or, just use your imagination. It depends really what perspective you're looking at. So it doesn't, the lockdown itself doesn't have to be an anchor. It can be something like, as I said, a nation. It can be a person who needs to be healthy. It really depends what's your point of view.
A little tip, when I opened it, I duplicated that slide so that I can have a few templates if I want to start over, and it will be easier if you guys want to do the same as well.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea actually, to kind of, if you want to start over, you have a template. That's great. Thanks, Dieter. So yes, so these users have their needs. So it doesn't have to be 3 needs. You can make any, you can have 1 need maybe. So think, what does the user need in this context? As I said earlier, context is important. So, if we're talking about a burrito, it's just, a context of food and someone being hungry. If we're talking about Lockdown 2020, we're in the context of a pandemic. So think about the needs, but also within this context that you're making the map. And then once we know the needs, we need to figure out basically all the components. So what components do we actually need to fill out these needs? So as you see, the needs now have needs of their own, and you just kind of think of all various components that will be necessary to fill out that need. You can just put them on the map like that, and you can move them around later, but just at the moment, just try and brainstorm what are the needs for this. And the second thing, once you pop the needs on there, the components on there, think about, are they visible to the user? So if it's going to be something like water, electricity, like in regards to the final product, is the user going to really see it? So map it depending on like how visible it is to the user. And then also, once you kind of have an idea how visible it is to the user, think about where is it in the evolution. Now, the best way to think about it is also its complexity. If it's something like water, then it's not really complex. But if it's something like, you know, a complex software service platform, for example, or anything that requires complexity, then obviously it will be more towards the custom build. If it's something that's brand new, like a patent, for example, something that just came out that nobody has the same, it is imperfect and still needs to be worked on, like a prototype, then it will be more under the Genesis bit. So think about where you want to put it. If it's a product like that you regularly, can find in the store, like milk or cheese, then it will be under product because it's kind of more large scale, but it's still not as a commodity, not as simple, it's not a utility basically. And then you just connect your dots basically once you have all the components in the right places in the map. So as I said earlier, it's really important where these, because it's a map, it's really important where these components are going to be. So once you know where they are, it's easy to connect them. And you actually connect them by thinking about what needs what. So if one component needs another, then you connect them. It's as simple as that. And then you think about, does this second component have subcomponents? And then connect those. And that is pretty much it. So how are you guys doing with the maps so far?
So let's. So you had three options, right? One was the vegetarian burrito.
Yes. Yeah.
Second one was plastic pollution.
Yes, that's correct.
And 2020 lockdown. So
exactly.
At different difficulty levels.
Yes.
We have the breakout rooms functionality here. So if people want to work on a specific one, I can put them into those breakout rooms and you can visit each one of them and check out how they're doing. Would that good?
I mean, I'm actually good with doing it like this so everyone can have kind of visibility on what the other people are doing.
Cool.
Is everyone else okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, 8 people, 8 people's not that many to do.
Yeah, yes.
Breakups.
Yeah, so we can just share what everyone's doing. And then we can look at them later. So is everyone kind of understanding what should be done? Has anyone started already?
So is everyone working on the same, or is everyone choosing what they from one of the 3 options?
I think the best thing is my idea initially was that everyone could potentially have a go at all 3, but I think best thing to do is to start with one that they find most interesting and most relatable or something, and then do one, and then if we have time, do another one simultaneously. But we can start with one just to begin with, and whichever one they like, and then we can take it from there. If there's time, people can try and have a go in another one.
I think starting with the easiest is a good option, so that we
Yeah, yeah,
the process.
Yeah, if you know, but if someone wants to have a go at the harder one, then that would be fun too. So
if it is, if it is COVID-19, because that was I believe one of the options. Am I correct?
Yeah, lockdown 2020.
Lockdown 2020. Okay,
yeah.
So that's kind of the.
That's the advanced option.
Yeah.
Because it has.
Right. Well, I guess I'm thinking about what kinds of things you would be mapping out. With a vegetarian burrito, I mean, you might map out the, the tortilla and the beans and different things, unless you're mapping out where to find one, in which case, I mean, that's kind of a different kind of map, but you might have vegetarian burritos of a certain type that are more rare than another, or you could map out, I mean, so basically just breaking down the components is what we're doing for all. So for lockdown, though, the components would be interesting, I guess.
The thing is, that's what I said. Like, it really depends from what point of view you're looking at. Like, it's exactly what you said. Like, if you're thinking about, like, from what point of view is like how to access a burrito, you can map it from a different point of view, and and like you said, if it's like a specific, vegetarian burrito, artisan vegetarian burrito or something, it's going to look different than just any, like, for example, Taco Bell vegetarian burrito. So I would just say, use your imagination and have a go at it. And it will be really, really interesting to see, also regarding the lockdown as well, like the anchor can be nations, but the anchor could also be a person. It'll be interesting to see if anything else could be an anchor.
Speaking of which, I'm curious anchor. Would you mind going into a little bit more depth as far as, or a little more?
Yeah, sure. So your anchor is basically your kind of purpose, your destination. So what is the most important thing for you at the beginning? So I'm trying to see if I wrote anything before, but basically
related to your why. Like, why am I doing this map? Who is it gonna?
Exactly. So it can be a business because you care about a business. So, but it can be also, if you care about customers, it's going to be your customers.
I see. Okay, because I thought, so I just wanted to make sure about that, because I had done a map where the individual that I was looking at, because I was doing it about how an investigation would work, right? The individual that I was looking for, the missing person, with the subject, was the person that was that I considered the anchor, but someone suggested that the investigator should have been the anchor. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, because if you were, if you were thinking about, like, so you were looking for a person, but you needed a strategy to find that person, then yes, the investigator should be the anchor, because then it's the investigator who needs this missing person, if you understand what I mean.
The missing person, you don't know if they want to be found or not, so it's really,
you don't really know the needs of that missing person, so it's hard to make that as an anchor unless you are the missing person. Then you can make a completely different map where you show, like, oh yeah, you need, I don't know, you need a strategy how to escape the investigator. Then you will be the anchor.
Actually, that's a very interesting way to think about it. Now that you bring that up, I might actually put some thought into that sort of thing, because actually I started on, anyway, it's a different subject, but I did start on a list of what people would, like, where you would find people in greater quantities that aren't actually found, people that are missing, because there are certain types of communities and places that they generally will will go because of their needs as hiding from whatever it is. And this isn't, you know, people with a warrant or anything like that. This is just people that aren't.
They don't
So
want
it's
to be
different.
found.
Yeah, that don't want to be found.
Yeah. So
but that is an interesting perspective too. But yeah, okay. So I get kind of it's the one who's need who
whose
needs.
need?
Yeah.
Yeah, whose need you're addressing, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're addressing your own need as an investigator, then you will be the anchor. But if you, same for like lockdown, are you addressing what a nation needs as a whole, or are you addressing as a person what a person needs? Because it can be different. Like a nation needs, I don't know, it needs like a political system, it needs laws, it needs like, you know, different things, and then lockdown can somewhere fit in there. You know, needs like a healthcare system, for example, to be coping, and that's hence the lockdown, because we wanted our healthcare system to cope with it. So that's somewhere where the lockdown could come in. But if you're looking at it from a personal point of view, like a person, then you'd be like, okay, what does a person need? It needs exercise, it needs to be healthy, it needs food. So how do you fit the lockdown in there in this map too?
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad I cleared it up a little bit, I hope. Cool. So does anyone else have any questions?
I have an interesting question.
Okay.
So, because I'm not very good at mapping, I chose the easiest one, the vegetarian burrito.
Uh-huh.
I put the hungry person as my anchor.
Yeah.
I put need 1 as being the meal, the vegetarian burrito.
Uh-huh.
And the need 2 is a place to eat.
Yes, very good.
The place to eat in the lockdown conditions is a bit different than normal conditions. So shall I have 2 options, or I need 3, or shall I
think
out basically?
I think we're coming to the context here, because it needs to be context, you know, within a certain context. And if we're doing it now within our context right now, then yes, our context is lockdown conditions. So you can just do it for this. But once the lockdown is released, and then it will be a different climate, it's going to be a different context and a different map.
I see. Okay.
And you can even use the same map. So for example, like Simon has in the COVID thing. Let me see. Sorry. Oh, actually, it was here. See how he kind of traced the changes? You know, how everything moves in the map. So you could do the same thing, like you have a current lockdown map, but then you can put errors to it, how it will change in the future. Like where will the components shift in the future?
I see. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And also remember, if you're doing like I mean, I'm giving everyone a little tip now. But if, for example, you're thinking about vegetarian burrito, maybe the need is for the food to be vegetarian too.
True.
But it doesn't have to be. It can be just someone who eats everything and then decides to eat a vegetarian burrito. It's not necessary, but it's just an option.
I changed the person to a hungry vegetarian.
Cool. That will be me in a few hours. Okay, so while you're all doing it, I just want to point you out to some more like online references. You might already kind of know about them. One is you can read Simon's Medium articles. One that I used in this presentation was Finding a Path. But he's got a lot of them, you know, to go from like beginner Wardley mapping all the way to some complex mapping and business strategies. It's really good. It's also like made as chapters in a book. So it's like chapter 1, chapter 2. So I would suggest you read that. And then you have the online Wardley Maps, where you can do more advanced mapping than just on a PowerPoint. And then you can try Miro. They also have like a few options to do Wardley maps. And then I would also encourage everyone to share their maps. I created a channel on the summit just to share the maps, like not to talk about them, but just share them. Obviously, we can talk about them on the threads or something. But this is mainly to like put out as much as maps as we can there, because I think it would be fun to have them all in one place. And there is also quite a good tutorial by Learn Wardley Mapping. It's really nice with good bright colors, and it's really well explained as well with a lot of cheat sheets about every element. So you can go on there and have a look. Okay, so how is everyone doing with the mapping?
I'm trying to visualize the collaborations that a hospital would have to have during lockdown for it to. I figured I'd focus on hospitals since they are a point of, where.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the point of need right now.
So you're thinking about needs for a hospital, right? So the
right,
hospital
right.
is your anchor?
Specifically the security needs.
Interesting.
So I was thinking about, and I don't have so many things on here since I was just kind of trying to look at and figure out, what the anchor would be. But I was thinking about keeping the COVID-19 patients separate from the other patients. The very diagram of the hospital itself has changed to kind of accommodate COVID-19. So, in fact, security itself for a hospital would have changed. But then I was thinking about the different ways that, how would security have to interact with different individuals and aspects of a hospital, or different places that, like, for instance, in the United States, there was a man that was going to blow up a hospital with a car.
Oh, wow.
I think, I don't know, some vehicle, but, the car bomb. And, they had, he had to be brought down. Of course, that was through a different route, but it's still, even down to things like that, hospital security right now is kind of at it's in a needed place. So I was just thinking about that and how to map out what things are more a commodity in general, and what things are having to be custom built and dealt with on an individual basis.
Okay, so
which I just realized I wrote that terrorists were custom built.
So you can choose your hospital to be your anchor, but also you could choose patients themselves to be anchors too.
I was thinking about the hospital, the security team.
Oh, like what needs does the security team have? Like make that an anchor?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you a few things that were happening. You mean like physical security, right?
Yeah, specifically.
Yeah. So like a few things that were happening during COVID was there was a lot of mental health patients. So I would say our security that where I worked, they needed to hire more people because there was a lot more restraint that had to be applied to patients, or just generally some public, because people were very nervous, people were very anxious. And I would say half of the patients in the hospital were even mental health patients, and half of it was COVID-19 patients. So you could say that there was a need for them to be like in a bit larger numbers. But also you can mention they also needed their own protective equipment because they were also handling people, so they needed proper protective equipment. And yeah, maybe some other things that you can try to think of. Leave it to you as your imagination.
Awesome, thank you. That's actually really helpful.
Yeah, it's just a little insight from actually working in a hospital.
Which I do not, nor have I.
Yeah. Let's see how much more time we got. Okay, cool. So what has everyone chosen mostly? Besides the lockdown and burrito, has anyone chosen plastic pollution? I guess that's a no.
That is a hard one.
You think it's harder than lockdown?
I'm not sure. They're both hard for me. Even the burritos.
I think you have a really good string of thought for the burrito.
Because it's something I ate a lot before.
Yeah, me too. That's why I came up with it. I really do like Mexican food.
There's a funny one with a place to eat with the lockdown and the burrito one at the moment. Obviously, in the UK, lockdown is easing, and the British weather has defaulted to its standard behaviour of rain. So suddenly now you're not allowed to gather inside.
Yeah.
So if you do want to meet up with friends for a burrito, let's say, you can no longer just satisfy that need sat in your garden. You now need potentially umbrellas or things like that. It's just given the weather, given lockdown and vegetarian burritos, it's kind of a fun.
I imagine now two
example.
people standing on the rain eating a burrito and standing 2 meters apart.
Well, I'm certainly going to be not catching up with friends this weekend because I don't want to sit and chat in the rain.
Yeah. But who knows? Maybe there's people who actually haven't seen their friends for such a long time, and they're so keen that maybe they will be having a burrito or wrap and standing somewhere with an umbrella. Who knows? But yeah, very interesting because it gets complicated with the weather again. Then we come back to the climate, like if a rainy British climate changes the place of the burrito, like you said. So it gets interesting. Has anyone watched any other videos of Wardley mapping so far?
Yeah, a couple or a few of them actually in this conference.
Did you see Goher's one? It was really good, I thought.
I did. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and there was some interesting sharing with the cow and where to put the cow, where to put the milk.
Yeah, that was interesting, and I'm kind of. It kind of reminds me a little bit especially the shifts, like the kettle. I'm trying to figure out how to do that very thing right now, basically. But how he shifted the kettle over so that it wasn't custom built. I think it was. He moved it to the right, I believe.
You mean on the online Wardley mapping tool?
Yeah, yeah, just the ability to shift something over and show its change, you know, the need of change, or show how it has changed. But like, yeah,
I
the
think
difference.
you can drag and drop it, but I mean,
Oh
like
no,
drag it, but
but
it doesn't show where it was before, though.
Do you remember his diagram about the kettle?
Yeah, vaguely.
With the T.
Mm-hmm.
The kettle at one point was, you know, something that was more custom. I think it was a product, and then he said, well, if we move that more towards commodity, you know, it would be cheaper, and he showed that on the diagram. Anyway, I was just thinking about that because actually that's pretty much what I'm trying to do at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a very good presentation. Really, like, showed some of the capability in these maps.
Yeah, I think it was very good. I watched it only on the later on the video. I didn't attend to it live.
Yeah, I still couldn't watch it. I was hosting another session at the same time, so I couldn't make time yet, but I will watch it.
Yeah. That's the good thing about this virtual meetup, is because you can just record any session and just come back to it later, and it's not, you don't feel like you lost out a lot. Like if the session was live, then you feel like you've lost a lot, even if you just watch it recorded.
Exactly, because when you're in the session, you might be thinking something else while somebody's saying something really important. But if you have the option of replaying it, you don't have to trust just your own memory.
Yeah, exactly. That's very
Hello.
true. Hi,
Sarah.
How's everything going?
Sarah's here. Yeah, good. We're trying to do some mapping,
Cool.
and it will be on this. I will show you.
I saw you had the, what was it called? The strawberry, no, the milkshake, something, no, the strawberry.
No,
vegetarian burrito, that's it.
yeah. And then I had plastic pollution, but I think nobody took that one. And then we have 2020 lockdown.
Cool.
And I asked everyone to use one of the three tools.
Yep.
Whichever.
Share mine if you want.
Oh, yay. Cool. Please do.
It's not going to be perfect.
Well, you saw my first map.
Oh, my first map is worse than yours, so.
Cool.
So do you see it?
Yes.
I didn't put all the lines because things keep changing in my mind.
Okay. Fair enough.
Hungry vegetarian person is my anchor. And they have three needs. A vegetarian burrito to eat. Vegetarian principles is their also needs, and a place to deliver the food because of the context of lockdown. They can't go and eat in.
So they need to have a place where they can have the food delivered. Nice.
Yeah. So for the burrito itself, it's the components of what makes up a vegetarian burrito. For the vegetarian principles, there is the no meat component. I didn't go any further than that. And for the place to deliver the food, the user needs an application and some platform to run the application on, like phone or laptop. They need a payment method and something that's not very visible to them but is needed is a healthy staff to prepare the food and to deliver the food. So that can also be two different components as well, because the delivery is not usually done by the place themselves but by the application provider.
Cool. So I would move the veggies and carbs and dairy, because under Genesis you would have something that's super unique.
True. Very good.
So I would move that more to the right, like possibly under product even.
Yeah.
So you could move that to the right.
But actually, see, that would also depend, right, where you can get them from. So the interesting thing is actually, because of the isolation economy, right, you could actually have a situation where some things that would almost a commodity, right, that you can literally, flour, for example, is still very hard to buy, right, or even some of these things, right? So
true.
Anything that became a scarcity actually moved almost from a commodity thing where you can just go to the supermarket and you can buy it, all the way to, you know, beginning of the product, because it's very hard to get by. Or even so, custom building in those cases would be if you go to a farm to buy it.
That's very true. Yeah. So it depends. Like if it's still scarce, then yes, definitely it will be more to the left.
Correct.
But if the supermarkets have restocked and everything's fine, then it's more to the right. Yeah, that's the context. The climate depends where it's going to be. Yeah, true.
And the other one I really like here is that healthy staff to prepare and deliver, because one of the things that the next level of Wardley Maps is when you start to apply financial flows to things, right? So in the beginning, that is actually staff to prepare and deliver, right? So you could almost say that, in a lot of restaurants, a lot of places, that is almost a commodity, because they'll just hire, you lose one, you get another one, right? So there's a lot of companies that actually treat the staff as commodities. It's hard to admit it, but that's why they do it, right? They don't care about them a lot. They just go to the motions. But what's interesting now, when you look at this, is the concept of a healthy individual now needs a lot of work, and it's a good example of the better a society is at identifying and giving you ways to hire healthy staff, the more to the right they'll become, versus, for example, if you have to do a lot of work to figure out if they're healthy or not, then that is moving to the left, which is a lot more costly to you.
True. Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because, if you have, for example, to get your staff tested, and you have to work with them, and you have to verify them, and you have to, they're not just walking through the door healthy, then suddenly your healthy staff becomes a lot more a custom built thing than a product.
That's correct. Yeah. And they also need their masks and stuff, so they have their own needs too. So
yeah, correct.
Become a new map on its own.
Yeah.
That's where things get complicated.
No, that gets interesting. Where do you put the vegetarian principles in custom build?
So, yeah, I don't know. So because needs, does it also matter with where the needs stand? Because I just put the needs in the need order that I thought was.
Well, look, think about the evolution, right? So if you are vegan, right, or you are, if you were, let's say vegan is already fine. If you were, have a diet that nobody understands, but you do because you follow it, right? That's Genesis custom build, right? But if you follow something that is very well defined, so for example, vegetarian today is very well defined.
Yes, it is.
Correct? So I would actually put that almost on the commodity. No, the vegetarian principle, the principle itself, and even the product. You're right. Even the product, it's a well-defined product, right? It's a vegetarian burrito, right?
Then if you think about it, more people are vegetarian than don't eat meat. Fish, for instance.
Yeah, if you think about the world population.
Yeah. So someone can be vegetarian or consider themselves vegetarian if they eat fish.
When I did the keto diet, nobody understood what I was eating. That would have been very Genesis.
Oh, I know, it would have been weird. I was just you don't want to pay a fish burrito.
But then, like nowadays, the people who I used to be a vegetarian who eats fish, but nowadays it's called pescatarian. So now
Yeah.
that is also very well defined too.
I see. So they have different terms for that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see what's interesting about this is that you might actually find that with the isolation economy, the place to deliver food is now more to the left, and the healthy stuff to deliver is now to the left. So they actually, the impact of the isolation economy has basically shifted, for example, those two things to the left by the place to deliver foods and the healthy staff, which actually means that, for example, the cost might actually go very high up, and you as a business needs to decide where you're going to invest.
Yeah.
So, for example, the thing that I still amazes me is that I think there's a lot of businesses that are big enough that they should be investing heavily into testing, and even if all they tested were their internal staff, that would still be worth it, right?
That's
Because,
an
for example,
interesting point.
you see that healthy stuff to prepare and deliver, at the moment, that is barely on Genesis and custom builds for just about everybody else.
Not that bad, I would say. Maybe
Well-
custom, but
Well, how do you know? So at the moment,
they still go on delivering.
yeah, but how do you make sure they're healthy, right? So at the moment, the question is, how do you know that a staff is healthy? You need to test them. You need to have a whole workflow to verify that, right? You have a whole process that at the moment is barely defined, right?
Yeah, I think also it'd be interesting, like when the antibody testing comes in, then that could be a more defined process. Like not just for this kind of stuff, but for any kind of stuff, like for any workers, this will then probably move more towards the product, because it will be a standard procedure to test someone with antibodies and then just take their immunity for granted if that's what science says at that certain moment.
Yeah, but so if you look at the situation, right, is that if for example, if this is what your map looked like, right, from a business point of view, right, so you need to decide, where am I going to invest? Am I going to invest on my application, on my payment methods, right, on the place to deliver food, etc. So assuming that not a lot of it changed, I would say that if you're big enough, one area that you really want to invest is on that healthy staff, because that's going to become an issue more and more. In fact, not only is it an issue for you because you need to make sure you have healthy staff, and if you have an infection in one of your restaurants, is a massive problem. Is also something that the customers are going to become a lot more sensitive to.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine all you need is that if you basically have a couple of infections with from a couple of restaurants,
Delivery staff.
for people to start demanding, we want to know who's doing what, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Did anybody do any of the other ones that they would like to share?
Yeah. Anyone else did anything?
Sorry. Yeah, I just put mine in the chat there. Disregard the last thing that I said there. That was.
So Dennis.
Do you want to share your screen?
I just put it in the chat. I can't exactly share the screen.
I can share his.
Cool. Thank you.
Put it in the right
Thank you, Dieter.
window. Oops. I have to stop and reshare. This one?
Yep, that would be it. So I had a little bit of difficulty figuring out, and I decided not to explore it too much. But the arrows there, I was trying to figure out how to make it show kind of where things ended up being, so that there was an indication that there's more need, because gloves at one point, you know, and face masks, they were something that were rather common, and they ended up becoming less common, but we need to move back, I guess, in the direction of them being common. You know, just kind of none of these are really dependencies. Of course, if I wanted to flesh it out more, like for instance, the face shields, you know, you could have had the different components of the face shields, face masks, same thing. But face masks ended up becoming more custom built. In fact, a lot of them are more custom built than I even put on there now. You know, keeping COVID patients separated from other patients, it's something that's custom built specifically for this time, and also it's not really something that people have thought about or put as much thought into, perhaps, as the face masks. So it's a little bit less visible. The need for employees, the hospitals usually need more employees, but this time it was, you know, especially more so. But that's still, you know, kind of in that area that I wouldn't push it all the way over to custom built, because they oftentimes need more employees as it is. That's kind of what I got mapped out in the time that I had. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's a great what you did with the gloves and face masks is very true. Like, as you said, they were initially they were like visible, obviously, but I would put them even more downwards, because they're less visible. Like, people weren't thinking about it. It was so common that, you know, yes, they were physically visible, but maybe
Nobody
especially
was thinking about them.
Nobody was thinking about it. Yeah. So they were almost invisible, because they were almost like a part of the doctor who was wearing them. But then as they became more scarce, then you could definitely say that they moved to the left. So your arrow would probably go on the
How do I?
the other way around. But
Yeah, you can see the issues I had with that.
Yeah, I can see. That's what you were trying to say.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, because like it only faces one way, and when you adjust it, you have to adjust the face mask, the original face masks one, and I don't know, it's a little bit janky still, but
yeah.
You know,
So first we need to move it on the x-axis, then up in the y-axis, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do think that prior to lockdown, it was something that wasn't as visible. And I could, you know, we could show that more with the diagram if I had put more time into it. You know, the change from them being something that wasn't visible to something that was visible. But when they became visible, there were fewer of them, and they ended up becoming more custom made. You know, that kind of shows, you know, a need to.
They were genesis, because each hospital bought them as products. Maybe even thought about them as commodity, because your user is the hospitals.
Yeah, that was before the lockdown, though. But after the lockdown, like, you know, he was trying to say, it's like they became scarce, and it wasn't so easy to acquire them. Sometimes they had to like get donations, and like, for example, I was giving my hospital a donation of face masks because they were becoming scarce.
I mean, kids made rubber glove chickens, you know, blowing it up like a balloon, you know, out of the gloves at the hospital rooms and drawing eyes on them and stuff. You know, like now, nope. You know, you wouldn't think to do that now.
Yeah. We had at one point the masks locked with the nurse in charge. So if you wanted a mask, you had to actually like get the nurse in charge to take them out with a key and give it to you, and you need to explain like why you need it. So it did become very scarce and unique at one point. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good demonstration. And then you had, yeah, the COVID patients separated. That's also something, it's probably not straightforwardly visible at first. Like, I think it's a good position there.
And
And yeah, it's scarce.
It also entails other things that, like, you know, bringing in the rails or whatever, you know, that it would take to change the setup so that, you know, people flow in, you know, to change the flow of people. Basically, you have to bring in the different parts and set it up, or already have them set up, you know, in storage somewhere to be able to do that. But that takes its own set of things to separate the patients, and you know, have a different area of the hospital. So you're going to have some sort of signage. You're going to have the employees to direct people, and the security set up to make sure that people on one side don't get into the other side, and vice versa. So it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it was very complex. At one point, it was there was a green area where people who were confirmed negative were, or like completely not suspected to have it. There was an amber area. There was a slightly suspicious person. There were slightly suspicious people, and then there was the red area where there was people who were confirmed COVID. So yeah, it was a very complex procedure, and obviously it was something very new and just emerging because we had to adapt to the new environment. So
do you want to move on to Nadij's one?
Yes, let's see.
You're gonna have to teach me how to do that.
Yeah, you can use the second one because my Instagram wasn't connecting. Oh yeah, it's connected now. Yeah, it's not a neat one, but I was just playing with it really.
Okay, cool. So tell us about it.
Well, basically, it's just putting myself in, you know, in a lockdown position really, and putting what I need, my needs, food. I need to socialize. I need to stay safe. So in order to stay safe, I need to be able to work from home. In order to work from home, I need my internet connection. I need a computer. I need VPN, which I put on in the custom build. Not quite understand things yet, so I'm just.
You put quiet office area down in invisible.
Well, yeah. I put it on the side of near evolution because it's rare. It's something, you know, it's not easy to be able to have that. Now, why is down? I'm not quite sure.
For me,
I think
we haven't moved.
Well, I'm not sure where to put that really.
It's
a good question, because you could say that you take a quiet office area for granted, maybe usually.
Exactly. It's not everybody gets to have that.
But then at the same time now during lockdown, if you have children, if you have like, you know, then a quiet office area becomes one thing more visible because it's something that you won't actually see and need, and it becomes more to the left because it's something that's harder to find if you're working from home. And if, for example, like for me personally, it wouldn't be hard. So for me, it would probably be more to the right. But you know, if you have children or something, then it must be harder to find a quiet office area. So it would be more to the left because it would be more kind of a custom built thing.
Right. Yeah. It would be like the VPN. Yeah. Right.
And same thing for like staying safe. You know, usually, yes, that is definitely to the right, because you take staying safe for granted, kind of. You know, you don't worry about your health as much. You know, I mean, some people do, but you know, most of us did not worry about any viruses attacking us and us staying safe. But now, during these days, staying safe becomes scarce. So it's kind of harder to achieve, and it becomes more unique as much as more people get ill. So here your map becomes more even complex. I think it looks really cool though.
Yeah, you can move the quiet office one as well. For me.
Yeah.
To where? Like here?
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
Cool. And then you have your Snapchat and
Yeah,
Instagram.
social life.
Yeah.
So Snapchat,
Yeah.
Instagram, which is quite important to keep.
Uh-huh.
TikTok?
No, I don't do TikTok. My little one does. I don't. Yeah, and obviously food. Online shopping becomes sort of luxury or something.
Uh-huh. Where is that? Oh, there it is. Yes, yes. I think it's
Yeah.
great. That's where it should be. And yes, as time goes, online shopping will move to the right because it will change. So this is perfect. It will change and it will become much easier to do the online shopping as things come back to normal. So
Yeah.
actually it will even develop more and more because you know, it's getting perfected now.
It will, but and slight turn real quick, but it will. But then all the jobs, or a lot of the jobs, will be moved to factories, which not factories, sorry, warehouses, which is not going to be where a lot of people will like to spend their time. So that'll be interesting. Sorry, it was a diversion, but
yeah. Yes, yeah, that kind of jobs will not be interesting. But then I guess there will also be a lot of work in technology to automate this, like Ocado, who's automated all their factories with machine learning and you know, robotics. So I think, you know, maybe as technology moves forward, there will be more jobs in that area. So that will be interesting. But yeah, diversion. Okay, so limited outings for food, shoppings, internet connection. I would say I think it's more to the right as well because it's something that we don't see and we take for granted. It's always there, and it's been there for ages. Well,
Yeah.
What happened to it?
Depends where you live, right? There's some places where the interconnection might feel kind of bad, stranglehold product, right?
Yeah.
For an internet connection,
It
I've been
does,
going
yeah.
to great lengths.
Yeah, true. For me, actually, personally, has become a nightmare during Corona. So yeah, for me, it moved to the left, but a lot of people has a decent internet connection. So I guess it depends where you are.
Well, again, it might be like the online shopping. It might change towards the right as the time goes by.
Yeah, maybe more people will get like fiber optic and better connections, and yeah.
This is more, it's more specific to me. So
It's very cool.
yeah, well, that's my map.
Thank you, Nadej. Thanks for sharing that. That's very cool. Please, guys, remember all to put it in the channel. I think it's going to be really cool if they all come up in the channel. So where you can just have all the maps in one point. Anyone else like to share? No? Okay.
If you guys give me permission, I can post these two links to the Slack channel.
Yeah, you're good. I think hers is better than mine.
Yeah, sure.
There's no right or wrong. You have seen mine, so you should be
and my first map, the messy one.
Well, that looked more sophisticated than any of ours.
No, that was so messy. That was like all over the place. But it's, you know, it's somewhere to start. But I think, you know, every time you do a new map and every time you attend one of these sessions, I think you learn more and more. And then you can go back to your maps and like change them and tweak them. And so this is why also these kind of tools are cool to have, because you can just quickly rearrange stuff on it. So, okay, shall I share my screen back then if
Yeah.
nobody else wants to share. Thank you for sharing your maps so far. That was really nice. Let me see if I can share my screen again. Okay, one sec. I'm just gonna go back to where I was. Okay, so there's no more questions? Nope. And I really thank you all for your attention, and I'm really happy that you shared your maps with me and that we could all collaborate on them. I think that's really cool. And I hope that you got some tips from this, and I really appreciate any feedback, good or bad, anything to improve for the future. I do apologize for the little technical difficulty at the end, sorry, at the beginning. I had to, as I said, take my PowerPoint out, turn it, but yeah, we got there eventually, and I really appreciate your input. And
thank you so much.
These are my references, and there's one photo that I used as license, so I put it all there. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy the rest of the summit. The sessions are really cool. And as I said, the good thing is that all this gets recorded, so we can all watch it, even if we miss the session.
Exactly. Yeah, keep your eyes on the opensecuritysummit.org.
And
everything will be published.
And also I want to say some of these sessions kind of sometimes change, like we keep adding sessions sometimes.
Constantly.
Yeah. So keep an eye on, like, and if any new sessions appear that might be of interest to you. For example, we're trying to organize a Bodo 3 and Pulumi session. So yeah, so keep an eye on the upcoming sessions. We will try and add more interesting ones. And if you have any suggestions or anything that you would like to hear about, please let us know too.
Great.
And that's it.
And I want to do some shameless plug. Look at my sticker I bought from the merchandise store.
Oh, cool.
Just came today. So if you want to grab merchandise for the actual summit, this is the time to order them, because it takes at least a week to deliver them.
Cool.
That's awesome. I'm planning to get one of those face masks. The ones down at the bottom on there, they full facial recognition algorithms. So that's pretty sweet.
Cool.
I will post that link here as well. It's on the Hay Summit site. Anyway, thank you guys all.
Yeah. Thank you very much for participating.
It was great.
Right. Great work, Petra.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Your Wardley Maps presentation.
Yes.